my channel. If you're new here, welcome. So today I'm going to be showing you how you can achieve this Night King White Walker makeup look. I think I'm not alone when I say that I am terrified about everything that's gonna happen in this season, but it's fine and we'll get through it together. So anyways, with all that being said, if you guys are interested in seeing how you can achieve this Night King White Walker makeup, then just keep watching. Hey guys, so to get started, you're going to want to take some petroleum jelly and just apply this all over the life cast. This is going to make the removal process a lot easier and so that the prosthetic doesn't stick to the life cast. Then I'm going to be taking some cheap liquid latex and starting to apply this over the prosthetic, focusing mostly on the brow bone. I want to go ahead and build this up first because I know that this is really going to help frame the face, and then I can kind of add the rest of the details later on. So I'm going to be taking some cotton balls with some liquid latex and just applying that to the brow area and using a spatula and my fingers to kind of help carve out the shape. I highly recommend using reference photos. These are some that I was looking at for the most part, and I highly recommend that you find some for the White Walker that you're going to be recreating and trying to follow it as best as you can. So once you're done building up the brow area and sealing it with some more liquid latex, I'm then going to be moving on to the nose. The Night King definitely has a very defined nose. It's not quite hooked, but it definitely has some ridges. So to do this, I'm going to first thicken up the nose area by adding a little bit of unrolled cotton, sealing that, and then adding a few pieces of rolled up cotton to create two ridges in the nose. This is really going to help kind of create that funky shape that he has. You once again want to make sure to seal that with some more liquid latex and apply some edges going down onto the cheeks before moving on to taking some of your liquid latex and mixing that with some flour, and this is going to be creating latex paste. You want to try and find a nice paste-like consistency, and this is actually way easier than I was anticipating. The great thing about these White Walkers is that they literally just have almost slices in their cheeks and their skin from all the wind that is pressing up against them constantly. So in order to do this, I'm literally just laying it down on the face and swiping up. This is actually going to be creating those nice sliced look that we're going for. And as you can see, I'm taking some cotton and building up the cheekbone because the Night King definitely has some prominent cheekbones. I don't want them to be too intense, like Angelina Jolie intense, but I do want them to be a little bit more obvious. Following that, I'm actually going to be building up his nostrils a little bit more, so I'm going to be creating a few ridges around the nostril to kind of help give it a nice flap and also help kind of seal the prosthetic on that end and complete that area. I went ahead and did the same thing on the other side of the life cast, and now I'm moving on to the chin, so I'm just applying some latex paste to the chin and connecting it up to the jowl area, and then I'm going to be moving on to creating some ridges on the chin as well. In order to do this, I'm actually going to be applying a little bit of liquid latex on my finger and just smoothing out the chin area so I can help build up the area as needed. And so I'm going to be taking some cotton that is rolled up, and similar to the way that we did the nose, we're going to be building up some gill-like features on the chin. So I'm going to be covering this with latex and using my spatula to help flatten each edge before duplicating that and going down the chin. You can definitely see this more in some pictures as opposed to others, and so this was definitely something that I decided to focus on personally to help add a little bit more character to this character. And lastly, we're going to be creating the White Walker version of a cleft chin, where I'm going to be creating one vertical line and then creating two horizontal lines connecting up to finish the chin piece area. It should kind of look like an upside down T by the time you're done with it. Next, I'm going to be finishing the mouthpiece by taking some more latex paste and blending this from the upper lip onto the cheek piece. Something to keep in mind is I highly recommend keeping the corners of the mouth open so that it is easier to speak while wearing this and that it looks a little bit more natural as opposed to being too stiff. Following that, we're going to be moving on to the brow bone. I'm once again going to be applying a little bit of latex paste onto our cotton and latex brow that we made earlier, kind of creating a ball-like shape before blending it on to my forehead and the rest of the cotton brow that we made earlier, and blending this out with just some normal liquid latex. I'm going to be dipping my finger into some liquid latex and smoothing this out so that I can easily mold this into more of the shape I want it to be. This is one of the areas that as we get closer to the forehead, his face actually becomes a little bit smoother as opposed to the rough terrain that his cheeks are. Next, we want to create some expression lines on his forehead, so in order to do this, I'm going to be rolling out a piece of cotton ball and blending this using some liquid latex, and then also kind of helping to blend the brow bone edges. I'm going to be applying some cotton there and blending that out with some liquid latex as well. Next, I'm going to be taking some model magic to create his little icicle horns that he has. So in order to do this, I'm just rolling this out between my hands and then pulling it to a tip of various sizes and just applying it as I go onto the head. As you can see, I'm going back into some more latex paste and applying this over to the rest of the forehead so that it is easier for us to not only have a more consistent texture all over the face, but also something for these horns to glue onto. Of course, if you want to skip this spot, you can always do this on your bald cap later on, but I personally find it easier to do this all at once so all of the colors and textures are consistent. And last but not least, I'm going to be taking some more liquid latex and just stippling this all over the prosthetic to kind of help fill in any potential lines that happened during the creation of this prosthetic and to also help thin out some edges that might have been a little bit too thick to begin with. Once you've let that dry overnight, you are free to remove this prosthetic from the life cast. Now, something to keep in mind is I actually prefer removing the prosthetic from the life cast after the paint job. Today, I just felt like switching it up a little bit, and so I decided to do it before the paint job. I personally recommend doing it after, so that way the life cast and the prosthetic aren't moving while you're trying to paint on it and you don't have to hold it in place because it's already stuck to begin with. But if you're worried about maybe the color becoming out too pale because of the baby powder, I don't know, it's just up to you. That's just what I recommend, but this time I decided to switch it up a bit and I'm removing it before the paint job. So in order to do this, I'm just going to be applying a generous amount of baby powder all over the prosthetic and slowly lifting the edges and working baby powder under the prosthetic to help seal the other side as well. This is very important. Please take your time with this. The last thing you want is to have spent hours working on prosthetic and it rips because you're too impatient to take 5 extra minutes to make sure to take it off correctly. So please be careful with this because it is going to turn out beautifully and intact. So in order to paint this prosthetic, it is just like you're painting it on your face, except you have it right in front of you, so it's easier to see and get all of the details. So I'm going to start off by taking my Graftobian Pro Paint in White Swan and applying this all over the prosthetic to help cover up the yellow tone of the dried liquid latex and to kind of help start off for the base. We're then going to be moving on to taking our Mehron Paradise paint in light blue, taking a cosmetic foundation brush. I'm actually going to be using this to stipple all over the prosthetic to help give it that nice light blue tone before moving on to my Mehron Paradise paint in teal and doing the exact same thing, but kind of focusing this more on some of the contour areas so that you have a little bit of definition. Next, I will be taking my Mehron Paradise paint in black and using this to go ahead and fill in some of the lines on the White Walker's face. Something to keep in mind is you kind of want to water this down a bit so it seeps into those cracks. This is going to look a little bit messy, but it's fine because we're going to be cleaning it up a little bit later on. So feel free to really try and deepen those up because once again, we're going to be lightening up the rest of the prosthetic. So naturally, it's going to help lighten the cracks as well. So you definitely want to try and make sure that you really enhance those crevices now because it's going to be a little trickier to go back in later without messing up the rest of the prosthetic and making it look too dark. Going back into my Graftobian Pro Paint in White Swan, I'm going to be taking a chip brush and basically doing a dry brush technique. I'm going to be stippling this right on top of the highest points of this prosthetic, making sure that this doesn't fall into the crevices as much as possible, so that this really just highlights all of the highest points of the face. Next, I'm going to be taking my Mehron Paradise paint in blue and I'm going to be filling in the black cracks with this as well to kind of help add a little bit more color as opposed to it just being black. It's going to help have a little bit more dimension this way and be a little bit more colorful because you don't want this to be just black. It's going to end up making the prosthetic too dark, and this way it at least falls into some more cool tones and helps bring some more blues out of this prosthetic. I'm then going to be taking my baby powder again and applying this all over the prosthetic. Not only is this going to help set the colors that we've already applied, but it's also going to help mute some of the colors so nothing is too intense and too colorful because the White Walkers are very dull. There is obviously some color grading going on during their scenes to help make them look more blue, but this is just going to help kind of make everything a little bit more cohesive and not too intense. I'm then going to be taking this aqua blue and dark blue eyeshadow from my Morphe James Charles Unleash Your Inner Artist palette and applying this over the cracks one more time. Once again, this is a project that you definitely want to work in layers. What's great about this is because now that we have the base with body paint, it's helpful to kind of add the shadows in now and help make it look a little bit more realistic and like it is actually part of a face. Next, I'm going to be going into the black eyeshadow from the palette and using this to contour the White Walker's face. Something important is they obviously have a lot of contour on their face, but it just blends in so nicely with the prosthetic, so that is definitely the look that we are going for. It might look a little intense at first, but going throughout the process, it is definitely going to fade and look more natural. We are definitely doing this to kind of help enhance the nostril area, the cheekbones, the chin, and the forehead. Next, I will be taking some polyacrylic protective finish on a Q-tip and using this to apply onto the horns, and I ended up loving the way it looked so much, adding that nice glossy coat, that I ended up applying it to the entire prosthetic. Now, something to keep in mind is this does require around 2 hours to fully dry. You don't ever want to apply this directly onto your face, which is why you only want to apply this on a prosthetic where it is not going to be touching your face directly. And once you've finished applying this all over the prosthetic and where you like it, you are completely finished with the prep portion of this look, which is basically the entirety of this look besides the application process. So you're going to go ahead and set that aside until you're ready to apply it. And we are finally moving on to the application process. I'm going to start off by taking the same petroleum jelly and applying that all over my eyebrows and eyelashes to make sure that we're not going to rip any of them out anytime soon, and we're going to be applying that into our hair as well, specifically around the baby hair area, because I can only tell you guys it is so painful whenever you don't apply this where it needs to be and you accidentally rip out hairs. It is awful. So definitely don't be afraid to fully coat any hairs that you have on your face and on your head, obviously. Next, I'm going to be taking my BGE Thin Medium Bald Cap, putting this on my head, and then taking some brow scissors. I'm going to be cutting out around where the middle of my forehead is, kind of framing the face. This is really going to help get rid of the excess bald cap that we don't need and that we don't want to have to glue down. Speaking of gluing down, I'm actually going to be taking some Ben Nye Spirit Gum as the adhesive and gluing down just the forehead area for now before taking a brush, and I'm actually going to be cutting out the area that my ear is, starting at the tip of the ear, folding it down, cutting out that nice circle shape, and then I'm going to be cutting a straight line to that, and make sure that you cut off any excess that you don't need. It's not too necessary by any means, and then you just want to make sure to glue that piece down, and you can definitely glue down the back piece as well, especially if you have shorter hair, or if you have long hair like me, feel free to just bobby pin it into your ponytail. Next, I'm going to be taking my Mare on Paradise paint in black and just blacking out all of the areas that aren't going to be covered by the prosthetic. So this is going to be the eye socket and surrounding areas and my mouth. You're then going to be taking some black eyeshadow and just setting that, so hopefully it doesn't move too much. I ended up having a lot of spirit gum on my eyelid later on, so a lot of the black was picking up in the eye area, but if you make sure to set it and don't get spirit gum all over your eyelid, you should be fine. I'm then going to be taking my Maybelline Lasting Drama eyeliner and tightlining my lower waterline to kind of help black out that area as well. Next comes the fun part where you take some spirit gum, apply it onto both your face and the back of the prosthetic itself, and you're going to slowly apply the prosthetic onto your face, making sure to apply the very center of the prosthetic before moving on to the edges. This is going to help center on your face, and then you can work your way out by pulling it tight and making sure that it is flush against your face. Next, I'm going to be making some Bondo by mixing Prosthetic and Cabasil, and I'm going to be applying this around the eye area. This is going to help blend those edges to our face. So something to keep in mind is if you have any eyebrows still visible because the prosthetic didn't cover it, do not put this anywhere near or on your eyebrows. You definitely want this to be in areas that aren't touching any facial hair, because even though Vaseline is strong in protecting it from spirit gum, it will not protect it from this Prosthetic Cabasil mixture, because this is already tough enough to take off from the face, so trying to remove it from hair I can only imagine would be incredibly difficult. Next, I'm going to be blending the prosthetic into the bald cap and my ears and body. So in order to do this, I'm going to be taking my Mare on Paradise paint in light blue, the same foundation brush that I used to color the prosthetic, and just applying this all over the areas that you can still see your flesh tone. And I'm also going to be taking my teal body paint again and using this almost as a contour, or a transition contour shade at least, and applying this in the areas that there would be a little bit more of a shadow before taking my blue body paint and using this to really deepen up those areas. going to be going back into my Morphe James Charles palette, taking the black eyeshadow and just messily creating some designs and textures onto the body. And then we're going to be going back into our Mare on Paradise paint and lightly covering this up. This just kind of helped add a little bit more texture to the body to kind of help match the rest of the prosthetic, but we didn't want anything to be too intense or detailed because this is likely going to be covered up by the costume anyways. Going back into our Mare on Paradise paint in black, we're going to be applying this to the inner part of our ears to help contour that area as well, to help blend that in with the rest of the face before going in and applying this in the nostril areas and also under and around the eyes. You definitely want to make sure to try to blend this as you go, even though you are working with some texture and that is kind of a little difficult to blend, but you definitely want to try to make this not look too intense and like big circles. You want this to lightly fade into the rest of the prosthetic. I'm then going to be taking my Mare on Paradise paint in light blue and using this to apply over the lips and kind of jagged like motions like we did for the cheeks. This is going to help make the mouth seem a lot smaller, and so we can end up going in with detail later to make it look longer and thinner. I'm then going to be going back into my James Charles black eyeshadow and using this to deepen some of the forehead lines and also deepen the contour under the cheekbones. I personally decided to make them look a little bit darker so that they're a little bit more noticeable under these lights, and I'm going to be resetting the eye area as well. Going back into my Mare on Paradise paint in black, I'm going to be working on the lips, making them look long and thin so that they're not too big because they don't seem to have average size lips by any means. I'm even going to be creating a little bit more of that brow bone definition that he has in the reference photos by just painting this on to the brows that we sculpted. I'm then going to be taking my Crown Brushes eyeshadow and Iced and applying this to the cheekbones to really help brighten them, and also applying them to the rest of the face using a dry brush technique where I'm going to be taking a chip brush and using this to apply to the highest points of the face like we did earlier during the early sculpting process of the prosthetic. I'm then going to be going back into the aqua blue and dark blue eyeshadow and once again using this to apply around the eye area to help blend that black into the rest of the prosthetic so it looks like he has a nice gradient around the eye area. And for the finishing touch, I'm going to be taking my Nigel's Ultra Ice FX Gel. This is absolutely amazing, probably one of my favorite products to use when I get the opportunity to use it because it definitely just transforms the entire makeup look in my opinion, and especially in person. This is a gel that you're going to be applying with a spatula that as you apply it, it starts to look like shaved icicles. It is absolutely gorgeous and I highly recommend it if you have it to definitely find opportunities to use it. So I'm going to be applying this prominently to the horn and icicle areas, but also all over the face to help give that nice icy sheen like they are honestly trapped in the winter months their entire life. And that is it for this White Walker Night King makeup look. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed it. Leave a comment down below if you'd like to see next. Don't forget to give this video a big thumbs up if you enjoyed it and subscribe to my channel so you can see more of my makeup and special effects tutorials. And with all that being said, I will see you guys in the next one. Bye!